Okay, here we go. Looks like we're live. Just sent out that class link, so we'll give people a chance to log in. Let's see. Okay, yeah, looks like people are able to log in. Let's see if this lets me share my screen at all. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Yeah, it looks like we got 7 on. Here, I'm gonna turn on the light. Okay. So we got a few more. Yeah, 14 logged in. That's not as much as usual. Give you guys a little more time. Make sure that, yeah, that Canvas message went out. While we're waiting, might be able to see it a little bit here, but please excuse the palette mess. You can see kind of where the light's hitting back there. Finished some rabbit hutches over the weekend, so that was nice. Now, I don't have animals in my house that I'm allergic to, so that's great, right? Okay, we're going to go ahead with the 15 or so that we've got logged in now. We're just going to go start. So first of all, I want to review the quiz that was assigned. There will be another one assigned pretty shortly after this class. I won't have any secret attendance questions for this one because the questions from last stream will be on it. Let's see if I can get this handed back to you guys. It's not letting me. Let's see, just a second, sorry. Okay. Sorry, this thing's not cooperating with me. I want to hand this back so you guys can see it. Oh, I see. I see what I'm doing wrong here. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, sorry, I'm not going to be able to share it on my screen. So I'm just going to kind of read them on here if you want to read along. So this is the chapters 9 through 11 attendance quiz that you guys had about, what was it, a couple days to, no, I think we gave you about 24 hours to do it. So let's go over that. Once again, if you need anything, just comment in the chat or shoot me a text. And we'll go through this. Okay, so the chapters 9 through 11 attendance quiz, we had, see if I can make this full screen. There we go. So we had first, how will a court interpret a contract? We had objectively or subjectively is the answers, right? So in this case, it's objectively. So they're going to look at it from the outside and they're not going to take other people's private understanding of the contract. Question 2, it looks like most of you guys got that one right. So that was good. This other one, you guys still did fairly well on it, but some of you got it wrong. Okay, so are advertisements usually considered offers? The answer is no. Advertisements are not considered offers for a contract. So generally, an advertisement is not an offer, so they're not bound if you accept. That helps them if they're out of stock or something changes between the time that the advertisement is printed, because a lot of these ads will take weeks, sometimes months in advance to create, to get the word out. So we want people to have an out. So it's not considered an offer. Okay. Question 3, what is the effect of physical duress on a contract? Okay. You guys did pretty good on this one. It does make it void. Your choices were void, voidable, unenforceable, or of no effect. Remember that voidable is an option to void it out. So it has basically it's a legal contract, but one party was incapacitated and needs a way out. Oh, looks like, okay, so you guys are trying to see this quiz and you're not able to see it. Okay. Let me see if I can change this. Hannah, can you close that door? Okay, you guys should be able to see it again. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna make this come back to here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so question 3, physical duress effect. Once again, physical duress makes it void. So it's illegal. It was never legal. As opposed to question 4, what is the effect of duress by threat? Duress by threat's a little different. The effect of duress by threat on the contract, once again, your answer choices were void, voidable, unenforceable, or of no effect. In this case, it was voidable, okay? So keep in mind, physical duress is void. Duress by threat is voidable. So duress by threat does not include threats of physical harm. It's basically illegal threats of economic damage where there's no other option, okay? Anyway, you guys did pretty good on that one. What is the effect of undue influence on a contract? Okay, once again, this is voidable. You guys did really well on that one. Okay, so if you're one of the ones that got that wrong, just go back to the text. Question 6, which of the following is not likely to be considered a special relationship for purposes of claiming undue influence? We had, so the question is which is not likely to be considered. You guys were a little more confused on this one, okay? So what is not likely to be considered a special relationship for purposes of claiming undue influence, okay? So About 2/3 of you got the right answer. Adult parent and adult child is not a special relationship. Okay. Um, However, caregiver patient is a special relationship. Okay. Doctor patient usually is. Attorney client is a special relationship. Okay. Now, the adult parent, adult child, in and of itself, is not a special relationship. However, if the adult parent is incapacitated or the adult child is incapacitated, so one of them is somehow at a uh, in a lower form of functioning, um, at that point, it's only because it's starting to creep into caregiver patient type status where it becomes undue influence. Okay. Um, okay. So question 7: if someone is drunk and orders clothing online, the contract is likely to be considered void, voidable, unenforceable, or valid. You guys did pretty well here. Most of you said valid. Void, remember, intoxication is never a reason to void the contract. It can make it voidable, however, but only if the retailer um, knows of the intoxication and exploits it anyway. Okay. So if they're ordering it online, it's that's not really going to hold any water. And then unenforceable comes up when we're dealing with the statute of limitations. So that doesn't apply here. Okay. Now, question 8: um, is your answer going to change if the order was made in person and the salesperson knew that the customer was drunk beyond the point of having capacity to make decisions? Yes. Okay. At that point, it's a different situation. And rather than being a valid contract, it's going to become voidable. Okay. It's still not void, but it becomes voidable. Okay. So you guys need to know that because that'll be on your final. Most of these questions, actually, in some way or at least the principle, it's going to be on your final. Okay, so make sure you get that. Question 9: Michael has a man crush on Ryan, the 25-year-old intern, and is worried about his well-being, as Ryan is an alcoholic. Michael offers Ryan $5,000 if he can stay sober for 3 months. Is Ryan's abstention from alcohol for 3 months adequate consideration for the contract? Yes, it is. And once again, this goes to legal detriment. So if Ryan suffers a legal detriment, it is considered consideration for a contract, even if he's not actually paying anything out of pocket or giving anything else. If he suffers a legal detriment, that's considered consideration for the contract. Does 25-year-old Ryan have the legal ability to drink alcohol? Yes. If he stays sober for 3 months, is he abstaining from something that he's legally entitled to do? Yes. Okay. So in this case, that is adequate consideration. However, question 10 is a little different, right? So exact same, and it's so you guys got what is this about 80% of you got 9 right, but 10 only about 60. Yeah, about 60% got it right. Okay, so question 10: Michael has a man crush on Ryan, the 25-year-old intern, and is worried about his well-being as Ryan is addicted to illegal drugs. Michael offers Ryan $5,000 if he can stay clean for 3 months. Oh, excuse me. Is Ryan's abstention from illegal drugs for 3 months adequate consideration for the contract? In this case, no, it's not. Does Ryan have because once again, we're going to that legal detriment issue. Okay. So does Ryan have the legal ability to use, purchase, possess illegal drugs? No. So if he's abstaining from something he's not legally allowed to do anyway, um, it's not considered adequate consideration. And I know, some of you with a little bit of libertarian strain in you might argue otherwise, but the principle we're testing on here is legal detriment. Okay, so if you suffer a legal detriment, you are going to you are providing adequate consideration for a contract. If you don't suffer a legal detriment because the thing you're abstaining from is illegal, then it's not going to work for the contract. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's an important thing to understand. So we're going to leave the quiz there, and we're going to go into our final contracts chapters. So I know contracts kind of has been taken forever. Sorry, just a second. I've got screaming children. Hey, guys, you need to be quiet, okay? Sorry. It's super fun becoming a homeschool parent and a digital teacher, right? So we're all kind of adjusting here. Anyway, okay, so with the remedies, oh, sorry, not remedies yet. Okay, so there's 3 more chapters when we're dealing with contracts. Okay, so in the text we have chapter 14, third party rights. Chapter 15 is just discharge of obligations, and 16 is remedies. We're going to cover all 3 today because chapters 14 and 15, we're really just going to gloss over a couple points, actually mostly in 14. And then in 15, I think we're going to skip the chapter entirely just because it's not, this isn't a contracts class, it's business law. So you're just getting the highlights of contract law. Okay. So in this chapter 14, third party rights, there are 2 principles I want to focus on. And in the text, there's a whole bunch of stuff about just vocabulary, and I don't want you to remember that. Okay, I just want you to take away 2 principles. So the first principle is 14.1 of the chapter, assignment of contract rights. The second is 14.2 of the chapter, which is delegation of duties. Okay, so in the contract, the first principle we have is assigning rights. So as someone contracting, you have the right, or you have certain benefits or rights under a contract. Okay, you're entitled to those, and unless the other party breaches somehow, it's a benefit you're getting from the contract. Okay. So let's say, Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute contract over beets. Okay, Dwight's a beet farmer. Michael wants to use beets to cook borscht for the office, and so the benefit of the contract is the beets for Michael, right? The benefit of the contract for Dwight would be the money or other consideration being offered. Excuse me. And then the delivery of the beets by Dwight, that's a duty under the contract that Dwight owes to Michael. Okay, so when we're talking about the benefit of the contract, that's Michael's benefit in the delivery of the beets. Okay, so in exchange for the money he's giving to Dwight, which is Dwight's benefit, he's getting the benefit of delivery of beets. Okay, now those beets, let's say Michael wants to assign them to someone else for some reason. Maybe he has found someone who will buy them at a higher price. Maybe he's found someone who has something else. He's always trying to be in the cool kids club with Jim. Maybe Jim is going to let him into the cool kids club if he assigns the delivery of the beets to Jim. Who knows? Okay. But the point is, Michael has the right to assign that benefit of the contract to Jim. So unless in the contract between Michael and Dwight, they had some kind of prohibition against that assignment, and they said, no, you can't assign this to anyone, then Michael has the right to assign the delivery to Jim. Now, as part of that assignment, Michael can actually, sorry, just scooting here. There we go. So as part of that assignment, Michael can actually assign um, to Jim the um, the delivery itself. So he can say, you know what, Dwight, instead of delivering to my house, you need to assign, excuse me, to Jim's house. Okay. And that's totally fine, totally legal. Okay. The only problem or limitation we're going to have here is if that delivery is going to create a new burden upon Dwight that he hadn't initially signed up for. So if Dwight doesn't really like Jim, is that grounds to void the assignment or to disallow Michael from assigning the delivery? No. Okay. Just because he doesn't like him doesn't mean he can't assign it. Okay. It's got to be something substantial. So let's say Michael's house that Dwight signed up for to, I'm sorry, guys. I keep yawning. It's got a good night's sleep, but maybe I have because I haven't had breakfast yet. Sorry, I've got crying kids again. Hey, knock it off. Okay. Sorry. This is super fun. So, welcome to why we don't homeschool. So it's kind of crazy now that everything's shut down. I hope you guys are all doing well, by the way. It's anyway, it's kind of life changing for everybody. I get that. So if you need anything, let us know. But anyway, so let's say Michael's house for delivery is 5 miles away from Dwight's place, right? So under the contract to deliver beats, Dwight's signing up for a 5 mile drive. Let's say Michael wants to assign the delivery to Jim, but Jim lives 200 miles away. Is 200 miles farther away than the 5 miles? Yeah. Okay. So that's creating a significant new duty upon Dwight to deliver the beats much farther than he originally contracted. Okay. So that's not going to work. So just keep that in mind. So with the assignment of contract duties, if it's creating a new burden or a significant hardship upon the person who's not making the assignment upon the other party, then it's not going to work. Otherwise, it's totally fine, totally valid, totally legal. Okay. The other thing is the delegation of duties. This is in, what is that, 14.2, I think. I'm going to scroll down here. Yes, 14.2 is delegation of duties. Okay. So likewise, Dwight is going to he has the duty under the contract to deliver beats. Can he delegate that duty to somebody else? Yeah, certainly. Let's say his cousin Mose is available that day, and he'd rather Mose deliver to Jim, who had received the assignment from Michael, just because he doesn't like Jim, but he's still obligated to do it. Okay, totally fine. It's totally fine. He has the right to delegate his duty to somebody else. However, let's say Mose forgets or just straight up, doesn't show for whatever reason, or is grossly negligent in the delivery, delivers to the wrong address, anything like that. Okay. Ultimately, that still comes back on Dwight. Dwight assigned his duties to someone else and delegated those duties. He's still bound to fill the contract as he originally contracted, whether or not his the person he delegated to actually fulfills. So this comes up a lot with you guys with leases. Okay, so let's say you're leasing your property and you want to sublet. Okay, so what you're essentially doing is assigning your duty of the contract to someone else. And some landlords will prohibit that, and they're allowed to do that. But at the common law, you have the right to sublet. Um, so you have the right to basically find someone else to take over your contract. But if that person doesn't pay or if that person trashes the place, ultimately you're still responsible for them upholding the contract. Okay. So when it comes to delegation of duties, you just remember that in delegation, you're ultimately responsible for whether or not the contract gets fulfilled. Okay. So that's it for chapter 14. It's just those two principles that you can assign as long as you're not creating new duties on the other party, and you can delegate your responsibilities so long as they actually get fulfilled. And if the person you delegated the duties to doesn't fulfill them, you still have to answer for that. Okay. So those are the two principles to take away from this chapter. We're going to skip chapter 15 on discharge of obligations, just because it's just too much. It's good stuff, but I want to focus on some of the other stuff. Okay. Um, and then finally, chapter 16, remedies. Okay. So we're going to go into quite a bit of depth on this chapter and cover most of it. Okay. Um, so, sorry, I can't get comfortable here. Okay, so remedies is there's four kinds of remedies. Okay, so first we have damages. Sorry. Let me backtrack. So there's two general categories of remedies. Okay, legal remedies and equitable remedies. Okay, so legal remedies are things that basically can provide some kind of compensation or make someone whole um, based on how we're defining those damages or the breach. Whereas equitable remedies are things that can make them whole based on making somebody do something or not do something um, to um, to make them whole. Okay, so there's only one kind of legal remedy. So that first category, there's one kind, and that's damages. And there's 6 categories of damages that we're going to cover in this class. Okay, so we'll come back to those. But let's start focusing on the equitable remedies for a minute. Okay, there's 3 of those: specific performance, injunction, and restitution. Okay, so these are all words you're going to have to remember. What we're going to do, so the quiz I'm going to assign later today actually only covers what we covered last time in class, and I'm going to give you guys plenty of time to read and try to understand what we're covering today as far as um, these remedies, because there's quite a few, and it's all new words. Okay, and we don't have the benefit of the whiteboard to kind of write them down. Okay, so once again, so we have the equitable remedies. Okay, so those equitable remedies are specific performance, injunction, and restitution. Okay, and I'm actually going to make a note in here so you guys can see that. Guys, you're being too loud. Just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, there we go. So I just typed those in to the chat bar. I think it depends on which device you're viewing on. Some of you might be able to see that easier than others. So our equitable remedies, once again, one are specific performance, two injunction, and three restitution. Okay. Specific, basically the court ordering. Sorry, it said my connection was unstable. Hopefully, if I hold it up a little higher, it works better. Okay, so once again, the specific performance is rare because it's the court ordering somebody to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do. Okay, and you can imagine a court ordering someone to do something in America. We don't like that, right? We're more likely to order someone to not do something, but to order them to affirmatively act, it doesn't sit right with us. Okay, so we anyway, it's very rare. So pretty much works only when we're talking about delivery or conveyance of an object or item. So, for example, if the contract was for delivery of a truly unique item, one of a kind, antique or vintage car or something like that, then yeah, we might be dealing with specific performance. Okay. So the court's basically saying, well, yeah, you have to deliver this thing. Okay. And maybe you can contract away the delivery, but you have to give them possession of it. Okay. So that specific performance. Where this most often comes up is with real estate. Okay. With real estate, the legal doctrine is that no parcel is the same. All real estate is truly unique. Therefore, if you have a real estate, the legal doctrine is that no parcel is the same. All real estate is truly unique. Therefore, if you have a purchase contract for real estate and the seller decides not to sell for whatever reason, they can still the buyer can force the seller to go through with it. Okay, if it got past a certain point, because that real estate is truly unique. Okay, there was a case in contract law that we studied on a different principle, but it was dealing with Oklahoma, and I made the comment in class that you could argue that all the real estate in Oklahoma is the same, and that didn't fly. So I was hoping it would, because it's kind of true if you've ever been there. But nonetheless, even if it's in Oklahoma, all real estate is considered truly unique. Therefore, specific performance comes in. Okay. Number two would be an injunction. Okay. And this is much more common, probably the most common of the equitable remedies. Okay. The injunction is where we're telling somebody not to do something or to stop something. Okay. This is much more common and comes up if somebody's committing harm. So, for example, somebody's selling products under someone else's name or using their patent or their intellectual property, or some kind of other irreversible economic harm is going to result by someone selling something or shipping something, then we're going to file an injunction, meaning they can no longer do that. Okay, so injunctions bar somebody from doing something. Okay, much more common. And then finally, three is restitution. And what that does is it basically, we see this often with children, right? So they're playing with toys, and then there's a theft of a toy, or they might miscommunicate or agree, or agree to something and then change their minds later. Okay, and so the restitution is basically we take everything away and we just put them back how they were 5 minutes ago. Okay, so that's kind of what restitution is in the legal stance too. We're basically taking the parties as leaving them as they were originally. Okay, so we're any property or any goods that exchange hands, we're going to restore. That's much less common. Um, so, basically putting them back in the position they were before the contract was made. Okay. Um, with the injunctions, I want to go back to injunctions for a minute. Because I did miss one point there. One of the points I wanted to make with injunctions is this comes up in contract law most often with non-compete agreements. And I don't think we've talked about these too much yet, so I want to just double back on non-compete agreements. So, because I think about 3 or 4 class periods ago, we did talk about them briefly, but non-compete agreements are basically when somebody says, as a condition for my employment or this contract, I'm not going to compete in this type of market sector for a certain period of time or within this geographical area. Um, so an injunction would be, so let's say someone breaches that contract and they start competing. The injunction would be basically someone asking the court to get them to stop. Okay. This in Utah. So let's say you have a non-compete contract that's a 2-year contract, okay? And it's not part of the sale of a business or anything. It's just kind of a standard 2-year non-compete. You went in to go work for a tech company. They had you sign a 2-year non-compete, and then you decide to compete. Okay, so you decide to quit your job. Under current Utah law, if your employer tries to sue for an injunction to enforce that 2-year non-compete, they're subject to fines. So the new Utah law basically says, well, it's not new. It's been a couple years, maybe 3 years now. It says if an employer tries to enforce a non-compete agreement that whose terms outlined a period longer than a year, for the non-compete period, then they're subject to fines. And so anyway, something good to know. So if you ever do want to compete, even though you signed a non-compete, take a look at that law, see if it applies to you. Let's see. Okay, so that's all I want to touch on equitable remedies, because the damages, like I said, there are 6, and so it starts to become a little cumbersome. Okay. Come on. I'm going to copy this into here so you have something to see in the comments. Okay, there we go. So there are 6 different types of damages. So compensatory, incidental, consequential, nominal, liquidated, and punitive. Okay. So these types of damages are not not part of the equitable remedies. These are legal remedies. Okay. So first is compensatory. So the example given in your text for compensatory damages is like with a contractor, for example. So let's say you contract with a contractor to build your house for 100K. That doesn't happen anymore, right? It's more like 2, 3, 400. But let's say you have a contract with somebody to build your house for 100K. They've got to pay. They're not going to put 100K in their pocket. They've got a lot of expenses, but let's say they were expecting to profit about 10 grand off of this house. Okay, so you contract with them. And then because of that contract, they say, well, this is going to take a certain amount of work. So they turn down some other jobs, knowing that they have your contract coming and they want to make sure they have time to complete it. Okay. So then if you come up on day 1 of the project and say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want you to do this anymore. They've got to scramble to find other work to fill. So they're, even if they're subcontractors and everybody else, so we're going to ignore that and we're just going to talk about the contractor specifically. Okay. If that contractor turned down other jobs expecting 10 grand in profit, then their compensatory damages for breach of contract be 10 grand. Okay. Even though the contract was for 100 grand, what we're doing with compensatory damages is we are compensating them for their time in booking the contract and replacing their expected profits. Okay. And you can imagine how expected profits can be very difficult to calculate, which is why there's a lot of dispute on compensatory damages. Many of these types of damages there's dispute over how to calculate them, which is why one of them deals with that difficulty, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Incidental is a little different. Okay. So let's say we got some cattle. Okay. Cattle are, they're livestock. They're kind of annoying sometimes. Okay. So when you have cattle, if you don't feed them, usually they try to find a way to escape. So they're looking for, they'll either climb out of their pen or, otherwise push against the fencing, find ways to try to get out and eat somehow. Because if they get hungry, they get mad. As long as you keep them fed, they're okay. So not feeding them is really not an option. Okay. So let's say we've got 100 head of cattle, each, depending on the time of year. What is that? Like about 30, 40 bales a day, maybe a little less. It's been a while since I fed cattle. Anyway, we've got enough ag kids on this one. You can correct me. Okay. But let's say we need our bales of hay every day to keep them fed. And for whatever reason, our supplier that drops off our supply doesn't show one day. Okay. Even though we've had a contract for them to do that. If I then go out and say, you know what, I simply do not have an option to not feed my cows. I have to go out and feed my cows. But because it's short notice, it's not part of a long-term contract, I'm paying a premium on those bales. So let's say, just for simplicity's sake, so I got 30 bales at $10 a piece is my normal price, but I have to pay $20 a piece at the local feed store just to because it's short notice. Like I said, it's not part of an ongoing contract. So 30 bales at $10 a piece versus $20 a piece. I paid a premium of $10 a piece on those bales, right? Because now I'm paying 20 instead of 10. So my premium is 10. So I'm out an extra $300 to get all those bales of hay for the day because my delivery breached. Okay. When we're talking about incidental damages, okay, so this is that second category. That's exactly what we're talking about. Okay. So somebody breached by not delivering, and I, as the injured party, have taken reasonable steps to avoid harm because of the breach. Okay. So I've taken those reasonable steps, and I'm out some extra money because of that. Okay. So not only do they need to reimburse me what I would have paid them for that day, right? Because I was out the $10 a bale for 30 bales anyway, right? Because that's what I was paying each day. But the premium I paid, the extra 10, because it was twice the price, that $300, those would be my incidental damages, and I'm entitled to those. Okay. Because it was reasonable damages incurred because I was trying to avoid the negative effects of the breach, which would be hungry cattle, getting out, escaping, causing other damages. Okay. Which brings us to the third kind, which is consequential damages. Okay. So consequential damages, let's say my cattle get out, because that's what normally happens. So especially, let's say my my contract isn't just for the hay; it's for them to drop off the hay and uh, put it in the mangers so that my cows are eating that, right? So I don't even oversee the feeding process of my cows. So my consequential damages, if somebody forgets to feed, is that my cows are going to get out and maybe cause other damage. So a normal consequential damage of having of somebody not feeding is my cows getting out, maybe getting hit by cars, the damage to the cars, maybe they trample over somebody. That's all consequential damages. Okay, these are natural consequences, predictable consequences, and damages arising from the breach. Okay. Um, Another one is like a plumber. Okay, let's say you pay someone to come fix your house. A normal consequence of bad plumbing work is a leak. And so consequential damages would be, um, any kind of repairs that would need to be made to the house due to the water leak from the bad plumbing work. Okay. The fourth kind is nominal. And this is my favorite. And why is it my favorite, y'all? Because we use Taylor Swift as the example. Okay. So if you remember, this was 3 years ago or so. Um, the um, Taylor Swift was having a photo shoot with some people. One of them was a DJ or some kind of employee of some sort for a music production company. And anyway, he decided to cop a field during the photo shoot. Um, so Taylor Swift decided to report him and say, "Hey, this is what he did, and that's not okay." And so he got fired. So he sued her for damages for getting fired, and she countersued him for nominal damages of $1 to have. So this is where nominal damages come in, right? This number four, nominal. It's $1, and it's not necessarily there to signify any actual damages, okay? Because maybe they're emotional damages, maybe the damages are just difficult to calculate. Nominal damages are intended not necessarily to represent the actual damages, they're there to represent um, a court order stating that somebody did something wrong. Now, we do this in criminal court all the time, right? And the punishment's jail. But in the civil court, as a private citizen, our only way to really have to kind of sue on moral grounds is for these nominal damages, or rather, that's the easiest way to do it, because that way we don't have to prove what the damages were. We're just wanting the court to say, look, we want you to award me $1 to symbolize that this person was in the wrong. Okay. So anyway, you can look up that news story. It's um, uh, anyway, but that's a good example in recent history of nominal damages. Okay. Um, Liquidated damages also deal with this this issue of damages being difficult to calculate. Um, Liquidated damages represent the fact that sometimes it's just hard to calculate damages, especially compensatory damages. What is the lost profit? Incidental damages. What are the what's the cost of mitigating harm by the non-breaching party? Consequential damages. What are the costs of the natural consequences of the breach? These are very difficult to calculate sometimes. So instead, parties go with what's called liquidated damages. And liquidated damages just mean damages predetermined in the contract. So let's say, with the cattle feed. So we're going back to that example. We have some kind of contract, written or oral, that they're going to deliver feed every day and put it in the mangers, right? And rather than trying to work out, those the cost of incidental and consequential damages. All we're going to say is, if you forget to feed on a particular day, um, the you've got to provide the next day's hay free, so like $300, or maybe if you forget, it's not a big deal, but if any cows get out and die, you're going to pay a certain dollar amount per pound for cows, plus any property damage. So anyway, they pre-negotiate the damages and how much they're going to cost ahead of time, put that in their contract. Okay, that is liquidated damages. And then finally, punitive damages. These don't come up too often, but let's say a company such as McDonald's makes their coffee at 180 degrees. Multiple advisors say no, you need to serve your coffee at 150 because 180 is going to cause third-degree burns. McDonald's ignores that advice and continues to serve coffee at 180 degrees. They then, when an older woman spills coffee on herself and suffers third-degree burns to her thighs, and needs significant skin graft surgery and everything, the court might say, look, yeah, the cost of the surgery and everything was going to be, say $300,000, but we want to award another million or two in punitive damages, not because they represent actual damages suffered, but as a deterrent to encourage this company to start serving its coffee at 150 degrees instead of 180. Go ahead and do some research on that case. It's really interesting. McDonald's coffee or um, uh, um, other search terms. Look at the details of that. That's a perfect example of punitive damages and what purpose they serve. Okay. So anyway, that's going to be it for today and for contracts. So now that we've wrapped that up, once again, I'm going to assign a quiz later today. You'll probably have till about noon tomorrow to do that quiz, and then I'll probably assign another to begin right after the next class on these principles. So anyway, um, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know. And if you need anything, I really hope that you're not just stuck in your dorms, that you have some ways to get outside and see some sunshine. The weather's going to be nice for the next week. And hopefully we can be out of this situation soon. Okay, we'll see you guys.